The localized impact Derek Carr to the Jets would have on the Texans. It's actually a little bit more than you would think. And as we always do here in the locker room, number one source for Texans daily digital content, we're going to localize it and talk about the 5 biggest impacts Derek Carr to the Jets would have on the Texans. Welcome to the locker room. Subscribe, like, share, all of that. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 Central on Sports Radio 610, home of the Texans. We talk to players. We talk to coaches. We keep you updated on what's going on with the Texans better than anyone. And in the locker room, this is number one source for daily Texans digital content, and we always localize it, as anyone should that is covering a squad. So we're going to talk about the possibility of Derek Carr going to the Jets. Is it going to happen? It could. You got to think the Jets are still going to try to look into Aaron Rodgers once he gets out of that darkness retreat, whenever the hell it is. I know him and Ian Rappaport can argue about when that ends, but you got to think at some point the Jets are at least going to try to talk to Aaron Rodgers. But if Aaron Rodgers retires, if he goes elsewhere, Derek Carr, probably the other most prominent name on the quarterback market. The Jets anticipated to be in that market at the very top. Derek Carr wouldn't cost you draft equity. You'd be able to sign him. You wouldn't have to make a trade like you would for Aaron Rodgers. So let's pretend Derek Carr takes his talents to the Big Apple. He goes to the Jets. How does that impact the Houston Texans? Let's start with number one. Let's start in the division. The Tennessee Titans. Derek Carr wouldn't be a Titan. Are the Tennessee Titans going to move on from Ryan Tannehill or not? There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of stuff they're going to have to do with the roster. They're probably going to have to make some cuts. They might have to pay some guys. But if Derek Carr wants to find a situation where he can win, the Tennessee Titans, as long as Ryan Tannehill's not hurt, they've been the best team in the AFC South the last couple of seasons. Would they like to add Derek Carr to the mix? Wade Smith, Sports Radio 610 coworker, buddy, former Pro Bowler for the Houston Texans, says this would be a nightmare for the AFC South. He thinks Derek Carr to the Titans would be just what they need, and it would be an upgrade over Ryan Tannehill. If he goes to the Jets, not going to happen. Not a Colt, staying in the division. Now, localized impact number 2, he would not be a Colt. Now, the Colts, for about a half a decade since Andrew Luck retired, have been going the veteran quarterback route. It hasn't really worked out. Phillip Rivers had some success there. Jacoby Brissett held it down for a year. Not great. Carson Wentz, absolute disaster. Matt Ryan, absolute disaster. You got to think they're going to get out of that business. But if they stayed in it, Derek Carr would probably be the most prominent name that they would want. Now, the problem with the Colts, their offensive line isn't as good. They got a good receiver in Michael Pittman. They got one of the best running backs in the league when healthy in Jonathan Taylor. But the roster's not as good as it once was, where they were a quarterback away a couple of years ago, just didn't pick the right one. Had they added Derek Carr 2-3 years ago, who knows what could have happened, but don't think it's going to happen. Think the Colts are going to be looking like the Texans, most likely for a young quarterback when the draft happens in less than 10 weeks. So if Derek Carr goes to the Jets, not a Titan, not a Colt. Localized impact number 3, the Jets are on the schedule. Robert Saleh versus DeMeco Ryans. Mentor versus DeMeco, and Derek Carr would be the quarterback. Texans go to New York this year. This is one of the top 5 most appealing matchups on the Texans schedule just because of the New York buzz and what I just previously mentioned, the DeMeco versus Saleh angle, a team that is further along in the rebuild and the Jets, and a team that's kind of behind in the rebuild in the process. And the Texans, Derek Carr always has those ties to the Texans. Because his brother David was the first draft pick. Don't Will actually guy me here and tell me about the expansion draft pick, and he actually wasn't. He's the first rookie draft pick for the Texans. So the Jets being on the schedule, that's localized impact 3. We have not a Titan, not a Colt, Jets on the schedule. Number 4, the Las Vegas snowball effect. This one's interesting. If Derek Carr goes to the Jets, the Jets would not be getting Aaron Rodgers, who they've been linked to. Now, what would Aaron Rodgers do? Would he retire? Could he go play elsewhere? There's a lot of people who believe that if he doesn't go to the Jets, Aaron Rodgers is going to end up in Las Vegas with the Raiders, with his former teammate Devontae Adams, with a team that needs a quarterback. Las Vegas currently has the number 7 pick in the draft. You would think if they didn't get a quarterback and Derek Carr left to the Jets, maybe they would be in the mix for like a Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, something like that with that 7th overall pick. But if Las Vegas gets Aaron Rodgers, then you're looking at a situation where they're probably going to trade that number 7 overall pick. And then you have Green Bay. Now, is Green Bay going to run it with Jordan Love? Or are they going to draft a quarterback or a non-quarterback? They're sitting at 7. The Texans are sitting at 12. In a perfect world, the Texans, after they probably select a quarterback at number 2, they want as many quarterbacks to go before they pick again at 12, because those guys won't even be under consideration. So you would want the Raiders or the Packers to draft a quarterback, just like you want Atlanta and Carolina and all these teams to draft quarterbacks, because then the top guy on your board falls to you. What would Green Bay do? I think there's a strong chance that Green Bay would likely draft a non-quarterback, and that would take a player off the board. So that's localized impact number 4. Number 5, the Tannehill snowball effect. We've gotten very familiar with Ryan Tannehill around here. He was actually linked to the Jets. Apparently the Jets like Ryan Tannehill all right. The Jets don't get Ryan Tannehill. Does he stay in Tennessee? He's been doing AFC Championship game. He's won multiple division titles. We saw the Titans fall apart last year when Tannehill got hurt. They're obviously going to have salary cap stuff in mind. Do they run it back with Ryan Tannehill if Derek Carr goes to the Jets and the Titans realize, man, there's not too many quarterbacks on this market. We're not going to trade for Aaron Rodgers. Derek Carr might be an upgrade over Ryan Tannehill, but there's nobody else in this market or on this market that really is much better than Ryan Tannehill. Do they go and Ryan Tannehill and try to figure something out? Do they move on? If they do move on, the Tennessee Titans, then I think Ryan Tannehill ends up possibly in Atlanta with Arthur Smith, who I think is a good coach, just hasn't really had much to work with out there. But he did help revive Ryan Tannehill's career, and the Titans deserve credit for that. So we've gotten familiar with Ryan Tannehill. What happens to him if Derek Carr goes to the Jets? Did the Titans realize, we probably can't do much better than Ryan Tannehill? We're not positioned in the draft to where we can trade up for a really good quarterback. Maybe we want to see what's up with Malik Willis, although that was ugly last year. The Tannehill snowball effect would be interesting. Could still end up on the schedule if he goes to Atlanta, because the Texans face the Falcons next year. So the top 5 localized impacts: number 1, not a Titan. Number 2, not a Colt. Number 3, Jets are on the schedule, so we'd see Derek Carr. Number 4, the Las Vegas snowball effect. And number 5, the Tannehill snowball effect. Did I miss anything? If I missed it, put it in the comments. If you think I said something dumb, put it in the comments. If you think I was brilliant, put it in the comments. This is also a very interactive activity. We're about 6 months into it, and I think we're about 3K deep. Only going to get better as the draft comes along. Download the Odyssey app to listen to In the Loop on Sports Radio 610, the home of the Texans. Subscribe to the Locker Room, #1 source for Texans daily digital content. And as we always do, we like to localize it. Those are the 5 localized effects / impacts Derek Carr going to the Jets would have on the Houston Texans. And no matter what happens, whether Derek Carr ends up on the Jets or not, when it comes to this Texans game, we are all in this together. Have a good weekend.